Absolutely. And, you know, I tell people he's everything we thought he was when we traded a lot to go get him and more. You know, I really believe that. And so there's a ton of excitement. Of course, there's some unknown. Guys like being around him, and we're certainly excited to see what he can do.
It's been a very interesting offseason if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan, more specifically in the past month and a half or so. And it seems like things are kind of trending up, but at the same time, there's this really strange rumor that is kind of raising some eyebrows. So we're going to get to all of that in this video. Before we get to the content, in 10 days, I'm giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. We're also giving away $250 to 2 of my Twitter followers who follow me at Mikerophone NFL. And make sure you follow me on twitch.tv/TF Mikerophone. Once we get to 1,000 followers, we're going to start live streaming on a weekly basis. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The San Francisco 49ers have had a very interesting offseason. I mean, going into the offseason, the number one thing every single 49ers fan was wondering is,
okay, life is good. We overachieved last year.
Come on, admit it, 49ers fan. You guys definitely overachieved last season, and it's something you could all be proud of. And in addition to that, our quarterback, who was under center that performed really freaking well up until the final games on national television, is now going to be available for a trade in an offseason where multiple teams needed a quarterback. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Indianapolis Colts, the Denver Broncos, the Washington football team, the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints, and Carolina Panthers were all technically in the market for a quarterback, although the Seattle Seahawks were added to that list as a result of a trade that they made with the Denver Broncos. Needless to say, things were looking really good for San Francisco 49ers fans going into this offseason. And the biggest storyline of the offseason is what would they get in return for Jimmy Garoppolo? Everyone would have thought that at this point, at least before the NFL draft, Jimmy G could have been flipped for at least a 3rd round pick, possibly even a 2nd round pick, which would have been a huge W if you're a San Francisco 49er fan. Ultimately, none of that ended up happening, which brings us to a very interesting situation with Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is before we get to what we have to bring you guys on Deebo Samuel and what we have to bring you guys on Trey Lance. And that's the question of what the hell are the San Francisco 49ers about to do with Jimmy G? I mean, according to John Lynch, the San Francisco 49ers were really close to being able to trade Jimmy G, but unfortunately no trade was made because Jimmy Garoppolo had surgery on his injured shoulder, which makes a lot of sense. If a quarterback has a shoulder injury, historically they've had a lot of difficulty transitioning to a brand new team. Even going all the way back to Drew Brees' free agency, that was a huge question mark when he left the San Diego Chargers, whether or not he would even be able to play football because he had an injured shoulder. And so it makes a lot of sense why a team wouldn't want to pony up a 2nd round pick to get Jimmy Garoppolo, and unfortunately things didn't really go according to plan for the San Francisco 49ers. Now the question is, what is going to happen with the San Francisco 49ers as a result of Jimmy Garoppolo staying on the roster? When is he even going to get traded? At this point, there's only 2 teams that could possibly trade for Jimmy G, one being the Seattle Seahawks and the other being the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers are reportedly still in the hunt for a veteran QB, which I believe would be a remarkable addition to a quarterback room that is otherwise fairly inexperienced. I don't care what you say, Carolina Panthers fans, but I'm not feeling good about the development of Matt Corral if he's sitting in a QB room with Sam Darnold, who still thinks he's a good QB, and PJ Walker. Is PJ Walker still on the Carolina Panthers? I'm unsure. And when you consider the fact that the Seattle Seahawks are still in the same division as the San Francisco 49ers, the odds of the 49ers trading Jimmy G to a division rival are fairly slim. Although we've seen it happen in the past when Donovan McNabb was traded from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Washington Redskins, and prior to that, Drew Bledsoe was traded from the New England Patriots to the Buffalo Bills. Now you might be wondering, Mike, why are you bringing this up about Jimmy Garoppolo? Well, the San Francisco 49ers have been very transparent about their plans at the quarterback position. Next year, no matter what happens, even if Jimmy Garoppolo was to lead the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl, it was going to be Trey Lance's team from here on out. Now, through the entire offseason, we've been hearing the San Francisco 49ers double down on Trey Lance. Whether it's John Lynch saying this,
You know, I tell people he's everything we thought he was when we traded a lot to go get him and more.
or George Kittle saying this.
Trey has an insane ceiling. Yeah.
He's been compared to Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if that's because he has a lot of hair and wears a cool headband and he's sitting behind an established veteran for a year before taking over the offense. And there's been really awesome clips of him in practice making throws that honestly average quarterbacks can't really make. Now what's interesting is, and this is why it's a two-part video, because originally this video was going to be strictly about Deebo Samuel, there's this report coming from an NFL reporter by the name of Matt Lombardo. And according to this rumor, the San Francisco 49ers coaches are continually underwhelmed by Trey Lance amid the Jimmy Garoppolo buzz. Now here's the thing, man. We saw a glimpse of Trey Lance last year. It wasn't necessarily the most awesome stuff when Trey Lance would take the field. He has started whole games, but when you think back to other transcendent QBs, like say Lamar Jackson's rookie year, that man couldn't even throw the damn ball in his rookie season when he took over for Joe Flacco. You think of Patrick Mahomes and he started one game and he threw for no touchdowns and one interception. I'm not necessarily going to judge Trey Lance by his rookie season where he appeared in 6 games and started in 2 games and threw for 5 touchdowns to 2 interceptions with a 57% completion percentage, because with all due respect, that would be absolutely ridiculous. My first reaction to this is, why on earth did this get out to begin with? I mean, what would be the motivation for the San Francisco 49ers putting this out there? Because all this would do is hurt Jimmy Garoppolo's value even further. Now, do I think that this is true? Do I think that San Francisco 49ers coaches are truly underwhelmed by Trey Lance? Possibly. It could very much be the case. When you consider that training camps haven't even started, we have a whole 4 months to go until we actually get regular season NFL football, then I could understand why Trey Lance might not be at the top of his game currently. If you were expecting Trey Lance to show up to training camp and absolutely carve up defenses, then I'm sorry, my friend, you
were clearly mistaken.
This is a man that was drafted based off of his talent alone. I'm assuming the reason he sat down for a year was to, one, learn the Kyle Shanahan offense, which Kyle Shanahan even admitted himself is going to be significantly different to the offense that Jimmy Garoppolo has run, but 2, Trey Lance has had some mechanics issues when he was coming out of North Dakota State University, and I'm assuming they wanted him to sit down for a year to address those mechanics issues. Maybe work on making him a little bit more accurate. So I apologize if he may have showed up to voluntary workouts and didn't look like the next coming of Patrick Mahomes just yet, but I still think that there's 4 months to go. I remember a year ago, people were saying that Mac Jones had one horrific training camp and Bill Belichick was very disappointed in him and people were blowing it out of proportion, and then ultimately Mac Jones had a very solid rookie year. Now, in addition to this, there's more than just the Trey Lance fiasco going on that I personally don't believe. I think Trey Lance is going to be just fine, because apparently Deebo Samuel seems to be warming up to going back to the San Francisco 49ers. At least that's what we're all assuming. Now, it's so ridiculous whenever we report on this type of stuff, but according to multiple sources, I guess I could say myself because I just went on his Instagram and saw the follow myself, Deebo Samuel is now following the San Francisco 49ers. It is so ridiculous to report this as news. Like, it's such 2020 news in my opinion. But what does this mean? Well, it can mean one of 2 things. Either Deebo Samuel realizes that, hey, the San Francisco 49ers have had many chances to trade me. Bear in mind, they were offered a 1st-round pick and a 3rd-round pick by the Detroit Lions. The New York Jets presented a package to the San Francisco 49ers that included the 10th overall pick for Deebo Samuel and a pick swap, and that ended up falling through. Through it all, I felt like it was a very strange situation. Deebo Samuel unfollowing the San Francisco 49ers, then Deebo coming out and saying that he doesn't want to be a member of the 49ers anymore. He doesn't want to play wide back anymore because it could shorten the longevity of his career, which is very interesting because that wide back position is the reason why Deebo Samuel is in line to potentially receive this contract extension to begin with. Yes, I understand you might not want to play this position, but if it wasn't for this role being created for Deebo to begin with, then you could very much make the argument that he would not have had the season that he did, and he would not have broken out nearly as much as he did this past year, and he would not have earned the contract that he is about to earn. Needless to say, I felt like the whole situation was weird. Demanding a trade from the team that put you in a unique role so you could really thrive and be placed in a position to get this contract to begin with, where you almost took your team to the Super Bowl, might I add, which is very weird to me. But I think at this point, it's very clear that if a trade didn't get done before the NFL draft, at this point, if you're in need of a wide receiver, you might be looking at the remaining free agents like Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr., as opposed to making a trade for a player like Deebo Samuel. So needless to say, I'm expecting a contract extension to get done within the next month or so. I expect Debo to get paid handsomely, and then we could all turn our attention towards DK Metcalf and possibly Terry McLaurin to end the 2019 NFL draft wide receiver drama. But there are moves being made in San Francisco. There are moves that still need to be made in trading Jimmy Garoppolo, signing Debo Samuel, signing Nick Bosa. I honestly am not going to buy anything I hear about Trey Lance, but if I see Trey Lance footage, I'm definitely going to bring it to your guys' attention. Make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications so you can get notified whenever I create videos on news. And aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.